Welcome into another episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I am Will Thomas, and today I wanted to go through some upset alerts, this far in advance, right? Obviously, as we get into this season, week by week, we'll get a lot more spots, a lot more opportunities to really highlight some dogs that can take off some top-notch teams. But even this far out from the season, I still think that there are a couple of really good upset picks that we can at least look at. I'm not even necessarily predicting most of these. One of them I have already predicted, or actually two, but a lot of these are just really tricky spots, and there are sleepy games that people need to just keep a little bit more of an eye on than it feels like they're currently being talked about. But before we get into it, if you have been enjoying all this football content, subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter. I'm doing this every single day until we kick off, and once the season begins, it won't slow down. It'll only get even more intense. Thank you guys so much for watching. Those who have subscribed, thank you so much, and let's just keep this thing rolling. So I've only got 4 games right now. Right, there are only 4 games that I was able to just look at the SEC schedule and identify whether it's scheduling spot, just like a sleepy mismatch, things like that. So starting off, not chronologically, just in order of when I thought of them. First off is when Ole Miss goes to Florida in Week 4. Now, Ole Miss is definitely a better team than Florida. But if you break down the rosters, the talent disparity is not as much as you would expect, given Florida won 4 games and almost made the semis. There is a talent differential there, but it's not as big as, 7-win, the 8-win difference that it actually was last year. So, for starters, that. Second off, and this is really the biggest point, this Ole Miss team, this spot here, this might be the ultimate hangover game of all time. They play LSU at home the week before this. I think they win that game. And a lot of this upset prediction is kind of dependent on them winning that game almost. If they beat LSU at home, you get that win over Lane. You get the win over all those players who came back. It'll be just a physically grueling game too. So not even the emotional aspect of it, but just how hard that game is going to be. That high they're going to be on, not just through Saturday, they will be riding that maybe a day or two extra than you normally want him to ride a win. Then you have to go on the road to a Gators team. And here's the spot for Florida, right? This is their second SEC game because the week before this, they're on the road at Auburn. And I think Florida comes home. They come home one of 2 ways. They either lose that game, right? So Summerall is 0-1 to start off his SEC career coaching. He comes back home. He gets to punch up at an Ole Miss team. It's almost a desperation spot already to avoid starting off 0-2 in conference play and 2-2 overall. Or Florida wins that game against Auburn. Then they come home 1-0 in conference play, 3-0 overall. They're probably ranked, honestly, and they have this momentum going, and they're like, okay, we still get to punch up at this Ole Miss team who could be top 10 at this point if they win that LSU game, and they're fired up at home. Regardless of whether Florida wins or loses, and assuming, regardless of if Ole Miss beats LSU or not, Florida will be the more fired up team in this spot. Because they're going to be the underdog regardless, right? They'll be punching up, and I just think that the spot favors Florida better. And just 2 years ago, right, we saw a better Ole Miss team go into Gainesville. Florida had a little bit more juice, just like a little bit more reason to really be up for that game, and they beat them. Now, obviously, Lane's not there anymore. New quarterback, Kewan Lacey's now going to be a feature back there. So it's obviously a different Ole Miss team and a different Florida team. But Ole Miss just went into Gainesville very recently and lost as the better team. So it absolutely can't happen. I think at this spot, ultimate hangover for Ole Miss. And I believe that regardless of Florida's outcome against Auburn, they're going to have serious reason to be fired up for this game at home. I think it's a really tricky upset spot. And this is one that I've already predicted. I do think that Florida can knock off Ole Miss here. And the second game I want to go through, this is a hotter take, and it's also one that I've already predicted. But in Week 2, Alabama goes to Kentucky. And if you haven't heard that take before, you just rolled your eyes, obviously. Just give me 3 minutes, and let's see if you can just see my point of view of this. Kentucky hired Will Stein from Oregon, right? He was their offensive coordinator. Now he's coming in. Stoops is gone. Will Stein is in. Undeniably, there is more juice around the Kentucky program right now than there really has been in years, right? Even when Stoops was winning a good bit of games and there were solid teams, there wasn't that fire, that spark. But now that we're in this new era of the sport and, Kentucky went out and hired the young, exciting coordinator, there's just significantly more juice. And looking at Kentucky's offense, it's brand new everything. Right, Kenny Minchey's at quarterback. You have C.J. Baxter at running back. Tons of transfer weapons. You have DJ Miller who's back, but then transfers and true freshmen like Kenny Darby. This Kentucky offense is brand new, and now that goes one of 2 ways. It either doesn't work, right? And you get sort of like a 2025 FSU thing where just everything falls over, or it sneaks up on Alabama. And we saw just last year, right? Bama did not look great early in the season. They lost that game to FSU in bad fashion. They looked like a really weak team, but then they bounced back. They beat Georgia in the regular season. They made it to Atlanta. So why can't that happen again? Right? Like my biggest pushback that I got when I first put this out there is that you have Bama losing to Kentucky but then beating Georgia. Yeah, I do, because they lost to FSU and beat Georgia last year. This just happened under Kellen DeBoer, and I'm excited about Bama. I do have Bama winning 10 games this year, but they're going to go into Lexington in week 2. Right? You have no idea what to expect from Kentucky. Bama will be breaking in a new quarterback, just like Kentucky is, and I get that it's Lexington, it's not the most hostile environment. It will be their first road game, whichever quarterback that is. First road game, a running game that I don't know how good it's going to be, so there might be a lot put on that quarterback. You're going to have, I think it's the mid-afternoon slot on ABC. This is effectively Kentucky's Super Bowl. Right? They obviously have a ton more important games. They have some more rivalry games later on in the year. But in week 2, Will Stein, he won't admit it because week 1's more important. He has this game circled right now as I can announce that Kentucky is here if I go beat Alabama. This game is it's so much bigger for Kentucky than it is for Alabama. And I talk about this idea of wanting to be there versus having to be there when it comes to upset picks. That's less important in conference games, right? Because there are less times where teams have to play a conference game versus get to. But I mean, like, this game for Kentucky matters so much more than it matters to Alabama. So much more. So for that reason, it's just so much new. No one knows what Kentucky's going to look like. I think that could work out in their favor. I've got Kentucky taking down Bama in week 2, but even if not, I think that game's going to be very close, very competitive, and it will give us a real a real sign as to the spark that Will Stein is bringing to Lexington. 2 more games here. Third one here is when Mississippi State goes to LSU. Now this is different than the first 2, where the underdog is on the road, and normally I have a way harder time picking road dogs, road upsets, obviously because of the home field advantage. This is a scheduling thing for me, because Mississippi State's going to come into this game off of a bye. They're going to be rested. They're going to have all this time to prep for LSU. This is going to be LSU's 7th consecutive game. They're going to be beat up. They're going to be tired, even if there aren't injuries, just by nature of playing 7 consecutive games with a ton of SEC games. They're not going to be in as good of shape as Mississippi State is, just injury-wise. And the thing with State, they have game breakers on both sides. Their team isn't that great, but they have game breakers on both sides. Kamario Taylor at quarterback. Fluff Bothwell at running back. Anthony Evans at receiver. He's an absolute lightning bolt out there. Then on defense, you have Kelly Jones and Isaac Smith in the secondary. Maybe Braylon Womack at this point, the 5-star freshman, who can just go get the ball, go take a possession. And guys like Will Whitson on the defensive end. He only played 2 games last year, but he had 2 sacks in those games. Is he like a game wrecker at edge? State has enough game breakers where if each of them makes one big play, they can beat anybody. It's kind of like South Carolina last season, right? They only won 4 games. They should have beat Alabama, and they really should have beat A&M because they had game breakers who were all able to go make plays and at least compete, if not win those upset games. I think that State can be the same way this year because they have the roster, the Bulldogs do, to catch someone that they just really shouldn't. And Mississippi State at LSU really should not be able to catch them. But 7th straight game for LSU. It's sandwiched in between 2 road games. They're at Kentucky the week before, and they're at Auburn the week after. So you just kind of got travel mixed around it. It's a really tricky spot. This is not one that I have State picked right now. In my current prediction, I do still have LSU picked. It would not shock me if we get to the season and we get to this week, and I'm at least on State plus the points, maybe even sprinkle on them to win the game, because this is just a really tricky spot for LSU. And the last one I have circled here, preseason upset picks. Arkansas at Texas. Now, if you have been watching my stuff, Texas I have going 12-0. I am in love with Texas this year. I absolutely love this team. But this is a really, really weird spot for the Longhorns. Texas's bye week is in week 4. So that means that they have that bye week they play 4. Week 5. They play 4, have their bye. It's 8 straight to end the year. And this is the second and last game of the year. So this is their 7th consecutive game. And the scheduling spot for Texas, they are at LSU, this game against Arkansas, at A&M. That is one of the biggest sandwich spots I was able to find at any point on the schedule. And for Arkansas, this bye is later, so this is game 4 straight for them. So obviously they're not going to be totally rested, but it's significantly more than Texas's rest. And, Arkansas hasn't been great in the past, recently. Texas has been, at least had their spots. They've been a much more talented team. This is a rivalry game. These two teams don't like each other. This matchup means something historically. It doesn't get a whole lot of recognition, but that element is there in this game. You have Arkansas punching up at Texas. It'll be on the road, and this would be a season-defining win. This is something that Ryan Silverfield could point to as, look, I've got this program headed in the right direction. I need $10 million more for a quarterback next year. Just things like that, because that's so important in this era of college football. So it's a win that he could hang his hat on. And at this point, with 2 games left, I think Texas at this point will be 10-0. So are they already in the playoff? Are they almost effectively already in Atlanta? And I don't think that they're going to roll over in this game. But it's such a sleepy spot, because if you go to LSU and you win that game, then you have to come back home. And yeah, sure, you got Arkansas coming up, but man, we're going to College Station next week. We got a Black Friday game at Texas A&M. This spot is horrible for Texas. Once again, I'm not predicting Arkansas over Texas right now. I think the Horns will win this game, but man, this has all the feel of Arkansas being up like 10-0 late in the first quarter, and you just check your phone, you're like, is that right? Because this is such a bad spot for Texas. So it's just those 4 games for right now, right? Just highlighting some sleepy spots, some hangover spots, some sandwich spots, and just situations where the underdog has so much more motivation than the favorite will. So it's just fun to look at these games as potential upsets, and I don't, bracket busters is the wrong word, but just sort of, just like pick 'em busters as to how much chaos could be in the SEC this year. So that'll do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, subscribe to me here and follow me on Twitter if you want more daily SEC football content. I'm doing this every day till we kick off, and it'll only ramp up when the season begins. So thank you so much for watching this episode of Tailgate Talk SEC. I've been Will Thomas, and I will see you next time.